Okay, we'll call the City of Saratoga Springs City Council Policy Meeting to order on Tuesday, May 21st, 2019 at 6:01 p.m. Present tonight, I have Councilman Porter, Councilwoman Barch, Councilman McComber, Councilman Wilden, and Councilman Podeska. So we do have a quorum. I've asked that Councilman Porter give us our invocation and Councilman McComber lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this opportunity for us to gather together to conduct the business of Saratoga Springs, and we ask Thee to please bless us with guidance and with understanding so we can go about the items on the agenda and prepare our city to be successful both now and in the future. I ask you to please bless all those first responders and men and women in the military that are serving overseas. They will be protected and watched over. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Will the audience please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay, public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on this agenda. If you're here for the public hearing of the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and pay plan, please hold your comments for the public hearing. Please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments. Please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody here for public input?
There's the YouTube delay.
Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public input.
The screens are on.
Oh, the screens, the front screen.
The front screens are.
Okay, we have reports. Just for the council, David and Owen and I just got back from the shopping convention for retailers down in Vegas, ICSC, about an hour or so ago. So it was good. Lots of interest in Saratoga Springs, and people interested in being here. We'll send out an email with kind of an update and report of everything that went on. Okay, City Council, any reports? Okay, administration?
He's gonna do it when he does his updates.
Yeah.
We appreciate the time you spent with us at the retreat this last weekend, and we're going to be working on all of the goals that you've set for us. Thank you very much.
We didn't add that many goals.
Oh, come on. Of course.
We had a lot of old goals, but we didn't add a lot of new ones.
Okay. We'll start with the department updates. We have building, finance, and then police.
Could we start with,
Yeah, that's fine.
sorry, we're going to jump to Andy for a specific reason.
So, Mayor, Council, it's a pleasure to stand before you as always. This evening, we're going to start our quarterly report out with the recognition of Intelligence Department, Police Department. So we'll ask Sergeant Shane Taylor to come forward and also the Mayor to join us to assist with this. Shane has been an employee here, a police officer here for almost 9 years. During that time, he went from officer, got promoted to corporal, and then eventually got promoted also to sergeant. Done an outstanding job for us. He and I both started at Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office / UPD, and he and I'll miss telling stories with each other about the times we had at that agency. But we have an award for him this evening, and I'll read the award and then ask the mayor to make the presentation. Saratoga Springs Police Department. This is to certify that the Chief of Police of the Saratoga Springs Police Department is awarded the Distinguished Service Medal to Sergeant Shane Taylor for exceptionally distinguished service to the Saratoga Springs Police Department and to the cities of Saratoga Springs and Bluffdale from June 2nd, 2010 to May 22nd, 2019. Given under my hand this 21st day of May 2019 in the city of Saratoga Springs, Utah, Andrew Burton, Chief of Police.
Thank you, Mayor.
So there are a few members of the police department that were able to come. You guys are welcome to stay for the quarterly report if you want. Or you can go on your way. But anyway, we have appreciated Shane's service here. We wish him the greatest of success in Riverton. And I'll tell you, he lives in Riverton. Is one of the reasons, and he's also going to make a lot more money.
Don't
So-
tell the rest of your department that.
Well, sergeants and above there make a lot more money. The officers, luckily, it's not too much. But Riverton's starting a new police department. They're going to go in operation on the 1st of July. We actually lost Shane and one other officer to Riverton, and we lost 3 of our prospects that were testing with us for vacancy to Riverton. So, okay, so let's get into the quarterly report. As you know, I always go over the training and activities. We've had some very excellent training. I'll just highlight, you can read this, and I'm sure you've probably looked at it already in your packet, but I'll just highlight a couple of the areas that I think were important. This is Sergeant Zach Robinson. We obtained a new system. I'm not sure you're aware, but we have attempted to increase our capability in the less lethal arena. And part of this is so we can have a safer response to things like cases like mental subjects and suicide attempts. We have had in place a 12-gauge shotgun less lethal program, but we learned that this system that you see Sergeant Robinson using is more effective and safer for use in less lethal situations. So all the patrol supervisors have this system in their car. So on a 24-hour basis, we have capability to use this as an option when we have situations that call for it. This is some of the group that, these are the supervisors. Some of the supervisors attended the training, and I'll just note that target was built by Sergeant Williams, and turned out to be a great target for the rounds that we fired. And just so you're aware, we have a couple of different rounds we can use. One's a beanbag type round that will knock a person down, but won't kill them and won't penetrate. And then we have another, like a foam bullet kind of a round. So all the supervisors went through the training and qualified. So it was actually easier than we thought. It was actually much more accurate than we thought it would be. This is just a photo of, we had department training this month, and one of the areas that we cover almost on a yearly basis is changes to evidence procedures. And our evidence technician, who's really one of the best in the state, gave the officers a hands-on training to actually do stuff so she could help them understand where they need to improve. So this is just a photograph of those guys doing that. One of the things I had the SWAT team do during this last quarter was fire both a pistol and rifle qualification in their full SWAT kit, and then in addition they had to fire that same qualification in gas masks. This was the day we were out there. As you can see, it's a cold, snowy, muddy mess, but regardless of weather or conditions, we do the training. And here's a picture that shows some of the guys with their masks. Every officer that is assigned to SWAT has to qualify at a higher level qualification
than regular officers. And they also have, like I say, they had to do this this time in both SWAT kit and in their masks. So, any questions about, well, let me just highlight one other thing on upcoming events. We have some rescue task force training that we're going to do with the fire department. That's our department training for next month. And we've been wanting to get to this for quite a while, so we're happy to be able to do that. And then we'll have our emergency vehicle operation, which is normally in June. We'll do that in July. Any questions about this information? Okay.
What kind of rescue training is that? Is that mountain? Is that water? What is that?
It has to do with more like emergency situations, like an active shooter, where there's going to be both police and fire responding, the police for the safety and for the enforcement and for the shooter, and the fire department for rescue and medical. Yeah, so it's really kind of more of an active shooter co-response type training. Any other questions on this part? Okay. Really no change to this slide. I have used actual numbers for the projections for 2019. You can see we're pretty flat right now comparing 2018 to what our projections would be for 2019 based on calls thus far. But I'll caution you that our busiest months are June, July, and August. So
Why is that?
I suspect that these numbers will go back up a little bit.
We just released thousands of adolescents onto the community.
Well, that's possibly one, yeah. That's one of the reasons, but there's other things.
I was thinking it was fair weather criminals, literally.
It's too
Cold outside in the winter.
I'm gonna stay in here and just plan.
Anyway, I don't think unless there's any questions on this, I haven't concluded any of the slides. Nothing is really changed in the other statistical slides that I very often show you. We'll bring those back next time again, but no significant changes there. Any questions about this? Okay, and then really, I don't have anything on this. I just included as a reminder to you as to some of the things that we have a focus on. You've seen this slide a couple of times, and if there's no questions on it, we'll let the building department go.
So I just have a comment. Dave, will you work with Chief? There's like a weird glow. I don't know if you've got some kind of feature on it, but it makes it really hard. Like my eyes were having a really hard time.
Yeah,
Focusing?
I noticed that. I hadn't seen this on this screen before.
So just make sure he doesn't have any, like, the setting or the font or whatever just works with the screens, so that,
This is the
especially
same-
the people in the back.
This is the same font and screen and backgrounds I've used before, but I haven't noticed this previously.
Right, so I'm just saying, test it with these screens, because obviously we're seeing it, and imagine the people in the back. So.
Yeah.
I think we just need to turn off the glitter feature for this particular slide.
The sparkle.
He bedazzled his report for you.
No, I know it was the same, I recognize the font, but if we could just double check it in the
Weird.
future, yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else? All right.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, building department.
You pulled your slides looking at your screen.
Mayor and council, thanks for the opportunity to spend a few moments with you and appreciate the support we always get from you. This first screen is the same one that we typically start out with. Just continues to show the trend with the activities that we have, continuing to stay busy. The numbers are following suit with what we anticipated for this year. On this one, the building permits, we're still staying pretty busy. Our trends are where we've expected. Thus far in May, as of noon today, we're, I think, at 98 permits so far in May. So things continue to stay at an accelerated pace thus far. If we stopped in May right now, would be the second busiest May that we've had in recent history, and those trends have been the same so far.
All the rain that we've had.
Yeah. Well, see, we're just looking at, they don't have anything to do but pull permits. And so maybe that's why everybody's just pulling permits, because they don't have anything else they can do because of the rain.
They can't put a roof on, they can't do.
As far as inspections, inspection numbers continue to be busy, so therefore that does show that we do have builders that are actually building in the rain, because They're keeping the guys busy. They're doing a great job. Production looks good out in the field. Residential units, we're staying pretty consistent with residential units. We're actually, I think, in May, as of earlier today, we're at 47 residential units so far. So we're ahead of where we were last month and continue to trend that direction. We've got plenty of applications in for permits that haven't been issued yet for single family. And so we anticipate seeing both these numbers continue to rise throughout the next week and a half as this month wraps up. Commercial projects that we have going hasn't changed much from last month. Same projects are underway. Police station's making great progress, looking really good. Public Works addition and the Public Works storage building are great. All the other projects are continuing to move forward. So, any questions about what we've looked at or what we're doing that I can answer for you?
Just a thank you to you and to your staff and to our administrative staff as well, because one of the goals we tasked everybody with last year was to make sure that we're getting our retail really going now, and you can see that, it's evident, right, as we get these retail businesses coming in, and now start working on the job base, and so the office, and we see some of those offices coming in, and we've got more that are coming, but it's just nice to see some of those goals that we have come to fruition, and we couldn't do that without you and your staff, so thank you.
Well, that starts way before us. And we're happy for that and appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, finance.
Good evening. Okay, Mayor, City Council, just a few updates in the finance world. Our utility billing department has done 953 new applications so far this calendar year, and that includes contractor, hydrant, resident, and new residents. So it's quite the year so far, and we haven't even gotten to summer. So it's been a busy year so far. And then on top of that, our fixed network, we've been working with Public Works on that, and I think it's like 90% reading, right, at this point? It's 90% reading, and they're mitigating the other 10% as we speak, but it's been awesome to be able to see the minute-by-minute data that we're getting. So, and we have been able to be proactive, especially with residents where we see already a ton of watering when it's raining, and so they've been calling them and saying, your water usage is really high for this time of year, basically.
Real quick, if we could do some non-disclosing, like generic size the name, so we're not disclosing people's names, and maybe through the Facebook page or whatever, talk about how we were able to proactively help. Resident X in this neighborhood they had a leak and they didn't even know it, and we were able to contact them and save not only a nightmare because we would have waived some of those fees, but we saved water, a precious, resource here. Because all we still are hearing is, my bill didn't get billed for 3 months, and I got charged at the higher rate, and then I had to call the city, and blah, 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 I'm gonna call KSL. And so if we could just maybe start being a little more proactive on some of the positive things that we're doing because of these things that we're putting in place.
Yeah.
So it
It's
wasn't really, you
amazing.
brought it up, and really I'm looking over here as part of our,
It's kind of amazing what this new fixed
yeah.
network is doing.
But don't disclose names, but sort of explain the stories and say, real life examples, here's what we're doing as a city. So, thanks.
Okay, and then in your report, your financial report that you got, if you look at the KRI analysis, it shows that there's 3 areas in which we are less than we were last year at this time, and that's the building permits, the engineering fees, and the building fees. But if you look at the multi-year, we're up, looking at the multi-year. And it could be just a cyclical thing, or it just could be just the types of permits and stuff that we are doing at this time. Other than that, is there any questions concerning the quarterly report?
If I remember right, didn't we recently adjust some of our fees also? I know we adjusted some of our impact.
It was a
fees, but didn't
couple
we-
years ago for the engineering, you were talking about that?
thinking that on some of those fees, like, I can't remember if it was the engineering fees or building fees, but some of those fees we actually adjusted downward, and so we would see a slight change because of that too, and I can't remember which one it was, besides the impact fees.
We adjusted a bunch of planning fees.
Yeah, or maybe it's the planning fees.
Yeah, and I
Remember off the top? Okay.
we're going on almost 9 years worth of changes.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's not always up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are going to be some times when we have slight decreases because of things like that as well, so. But it is
Absolutely.
good to, it's good to be able to look at this, the KRI, and say, okay, what are our trends we've got? Where are we going? Which is
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Don't go far.
Yes, we have a public hearing for the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and pay plan. Resolution R 19-25. Welcome back.
Thank you. As you can see, I'm not Justin, but I'm here for him in his place tonight. He had a family meeting, so. But the good thing is nothing has changed. You guys have seen this data for quite a few months now, so nothing has changed. We're just asking for approval of the final budget as it is right now.
Okay, I will open the public hearing. Is there anybody from the public here for the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget? Please be respectful in your comments. Please state your name and address for the record. Please avoid repetitive comments, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody here for public hearing? Okay.
You'll have your time.
With that, I will close the public hearing for the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and take any comments from the council. Councilwoman Barch?
One question, if I could just start, Mayor. One thing that I've noticed is that the Planning Commission is still only getting $50 a meeting, and that means they're getting maybe $10 an hour if you consider prep time. So I don't know if we want to, not necessarily this time, but look at that and what might be commensurate. I don't know how that fits in with our comparison to the other cities, if that's something that we have looked at, Mark, or not, but that's something that we might want to look at.
Y'all could change that. I mean, if you wanted to change it now, you could. It's not going to have a significant fiscal impact.
No.
But it has remained static, I believe, the whole time I've been with the city.
pretty
So
sure.
If that's something that you wanted to adjust, you could do whatever you wanted with that. We can certainly benchmark it in future if that's what you recommend, or we
We get
can.
some benchmark info for us.
Yeah.
That would be
We can do
great.
it at any time, really.
Yeah, you could amend that anytime.
Okay.
So if that's something you'd like,
I
we
think
have
that'd be
to look
important to
at.
look at as we're looking at, we've got, 2 Planning Commission openings this next year. And I think as we're looking to try to get good applicants, it might be helpful if they weren't getting a complete pittance for the work that they're going to do in helping plan our city.
We personally think people should be paying us to read the code because it's so inviting.
So exciting.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, you would think that, yeah.
There's not a waiting list to check it out from the
I don't
library.
think they should be earning, like $1,500 or whatever it is, but,
Yeah.
obviously if they could get a little bit more.
We'll
than-
happily do that and bring that back to you probably in a few months.
Thanks.
Okay. Councilman McComber?
Oh, sorry, I did that on you. So I just wanted to mention, last time at the council, I asked for a meeting with Mark to go over the budget, and I had the opportunity to sit down with him over the line items, and felt very comfortable. I just don't want to go through all of that, but just so as the council knows, I felt very comfortable with the decisions that he made as our city manager, and why, and I asked him, I was not easy. There was sometimes I'm like, well, why aren't you giving him this, or, this department this, when he was saying no, and then sometimes why he was saying yes, but most of the yes were pretty obvious, and then the no's really made sense. A lot of it was existing budget, which said their EB, and then even others, it was, it was basically the next time around, then they're going to get that item because it's just not going to fit this year, but the next year. I just really appreciate not only Mark, but the staff as a whole, their conservative nature that they take from a fiscal perspective. We don't take 100% of our sales tax for budgeting and forecasting. We take a percentage of that. Just all in all, I just really appreciate that model and that approach. And I've said this time and again, it's just so much more rewarding and peaceful to go through a budget cycle now than it did in the early days when I was first on the council. So I appreciate that. And Mark, and if you can pass that on to the staff that aren't here, because there's many people who go into making this budget in your staff meeting that you'll have, I think probably tomorrow, you typically have one. So thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, Councilman Porter.
Sorry. I also want to thank staff. I think, I'm sure that we'll be on the docket for another award for our budget. The budget is always very clear and easy to understand, which I appreciate, and the transparency that comes with that. This is my fourth time going through the budget and pay plan, and this is the first time that I've seen them included as a single item. I would ask that we vote on the budget and then on the pay plan separately.
Okay.
I'll make a motion if that's what's necessary.
Okay. I have a motion to vote on these separately.
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilwoman Barch. Councilman Porter.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Pedeska.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
I'll move that we vote, that we approve the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and the appropriate parts of Resolution 19-24 dated.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman Porter, a second from Councilwoman Barch. Pedeska.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Comber.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
I move that we approve the pay plan, Resolution R19-25 dated today.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman McComber.
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Wilden. Councilwoman Barch.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Nay.
Pedeska.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we have business items, North Shore Phase 1, final plat, DR Horton is the applicant.
Okay, typically final plats are a staff approval if they match the preliminary plat. In this case, they've added 2 more units, and so that's the reason that you're seeing it. So I just circled on these exhibits the 2 units that were added. It all still complies with the North Shore Neighborhood Plan requirements and densities. That's it.
Okay, Councilwoman McComber.
I didn't have any, I'm willing to make a motion if anyone
Okay.
else has any comments.
I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the North Shore Phase 1 final plat, DR Horton applicant, Saratoga Road.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman McComber.
A second.
I have a second from Councilman Pedeska. Any further discussion on the motion? Porter.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Pedeska.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
It makes it look like we didn't do much work, but if you look at all the work we've done to get to this point, it's like a crazy amount of hours.
Mayor, if I could, I
Yes.
apologize. There's an item that was neglected under administration, and I forgot to point to Dave Stroud, so if we could go back to that.
Okay.
Mayor and council, as you know, not too long ago, we lost Nora to Moab. We put the recruitment out and we have hired Tippy Moreland, and Tippy is here. I will say she's coming from Park City, and that's at least the 4th person in the city staff that has Park City experience. Myself, I was in Summit County, so I'm going to go five in that area, but I will let Tippy kind of introduce herself and go from there.
By the way, Tippy, I apologize, I forgot to do this earlier, so.
Is this? I spent the last 2 years in Park City, but before that, I spent 3.5 years in Lehigh City, and even before that, I was in Eagle Mountain City. So I have a lot of experience here, and I live just down the street in Lehigh on Main Street. So it's really exciting to be able to work essentially in my own community. Western Lehigh and this part of Saratoga kind of overlap a lot, and
You guys all shop over here.
yeah, we do. So I'm really excited to be closer to home and to be back in this area.
Welcome back to the promised land.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And just as another quick update, Ryan Harris, our planner 1, we are losing Ryan to Santaquin. So we are in the recruitment now for planner 1 or planner 2, and had some applications already come in today, as posted today, so.
This dang good economy.
I guess it just shows that everybody wants what we've got because we got the best planners.
That's right.
So.
Okay.
But you have to
Thank
stay
you.
for at least a couple years.
Okay, we have the award of the contract for the 2019 road maintenance seal coat project, Resolution R19-26.
Mayor and council, this is part of our annual pavement preservation program. We put out to bid a variety of road treatments, including slurry seals, mineral bonds. And so, as we do to get the best price, we allow them to bid on multiple schedules, but we take the lowest of each schedule, ensuring that we get the most competitive price. And so this is awarding Schedules A and E to Morgan Pavement, Schedule C and D to Asphalt Preservation, and Schedule B to Holbrook. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer them.
Councilman Wilden?
Oh, I just have a motion. I don't have any
Okay.
questions.
Sorry, I actually have a question.
Nope, I already made the motion.
No, you didn't.
Oh.
With these projects, are they going to, I guess, how are they advertising to have the cars not parked when they do the?
We work with, it depends on the treatment. When we do our pre-construction meeting with each contractor, we go over the rules for working in the city, which includes public noticing in advance of any things like that. So just like we've done every year, typically they'll do either door hangers or knock on doors or things like that. And so,
Do they come back a second time for cars they couldn't get moved to finish up that area?
I'm sure they do, because things like slurry seals that encompass the whole road, they won't do it if there's a car parked on the road. You know, they're not going to go around the car and leave an area unsealed. So, you know.
Worst case scenario, chief gets involved.
We can tow, correct?
Our inspectors are pretty well versed in this. They've done this many years, and so.
Well, they have that new B-Mag gun, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, so for the most part, though, we put door hangers out, and we typically try and get pretty good penetration into the neighborhoods long before. So in years past, we've been very successful, and we'll continue to do the same public outreach for them. I'm sure we'll have Facebook posts and other things that kind of let that information get out to the public.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve business item 2, resolution R19-26, dated today to the contractors and the dollar amounts listed in the staff report.
Second.
You have a first from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion? McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the award of contract for the Harbor Parkway Losey Canyon Debris Basin Project, design and construction.
Mayor and council, as you remember, we were able to secure funding for a debris basin above Lake Mountain Estates. This is a request for proposals we put out for the design and engineering of this basin. We received 3 proposals. Staff recommends hiring CRS based on their proposal, which includes cost, qualifications, work plan, and after evaluating the proposals, they received the highest overall score. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we award the contract for Harbor Parkway, Losey Canyon Debris Basin, as listed on business item 3 to CRS and the amount listed in the staff report. Resolution R19-27 dated today.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman Porter, a second from Councilwoman Barch. Any further discussion on the motion? Podeska?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. The Utah Governor's Office Outdoor Recreation Infrastructure Grant Agreement.
Mayor and council, this was another grant we were able to secure as we discussed at the retreat. This is leveraging the existing money we had left to build 2 boat ramps, so we only had funding for 1. But with this match, now we're going to be able to build both. One is at Inlet Park, and one will be at the RC Park. These will be launches for non-motorized craft. They'll be 20 feet wide, constructed of armor block, which is a concrete block that you fill in the voids with gravel, and that allows the structure to kind of move with the riverbank and the moving water levels while still providing a stable, non-erodible surface. So we're pretty excited about that. After all these years, we're finally going to be able to construct these. So this resolution is just accepting the grant from Utah Governor's Office.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the Utah Governor's Office Outdoor Recreation Infrastructure Grant Agreement, Resolution R19-28, dated today.
Okay, I have a first from Councilwoman
second.
Barch, second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion? Porter?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Just one comment really quickly on, Jeremy, on the information that you sent me. The packet about the Jordan River Corridor Preservation, the actual documentation that you sent.
Okay.
In there, it talks about making sure that we're working with the other entities around. It doesn't mention the Jordan River Commission at all. We ought to make sure that they're doing that when they're in there.
Okay.
And then, to some extent, also Salt Lake County and Salt Lake County water users, because although they're downstream, they don't affect us as much. With the actual inlet and the actual pump house, or pump station and everything else, they will affect what we do. So we ought to get them somewhat involved in that as well.
Understood.
Okay.
Hey, Mayor and Council, this is a request from staff initiated to look at the River Meander Corridor issues, sensitive lands. Our First Amendment proposed would be to include the Jordan River Hazard Erosion Zone as identified later in the figure. This was a zone that was identified by CH2M Hill back in a study in 2007 along the Jordan River. So this, then going into the definition of a sensitive land. However, this definition, or this portion of a sensitive land could actually be taken out. And that's the text then. This would all be red. It's easier to read in black. This would be the text basically to add to the code. Now what this basically says, excuse me, is that if development's going to take happen along the river, along these areas that are in the identified corridor, which is on the map a few screens down, that's great. Just when the time comes for development, the riverbank itself would have to be shored up. And there's some broad guidelines. We wouldn't approve that bank shoreline. It actually would go through Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. Again, Commissioner Barch, you mentioned the Jordan River Commission. We haven't added, that'd probably be a good one to add into here.
And I just realized that was actually for this item and not for
Yeah.
Jeremy's.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeremy. I didn't
So,
mean to
yeah.
confuse. I saw the look of confusion on your face. I'm like, why is he confused? That's
But he's willing to take the information.
So we could add that. I mean, currently, right now, we have the waterfront trails and buffer overlay, which has some standards of how far back you have to be from the riverbank to build. This doesn't affect a property owner in any way. It just says when development comes, hey, let's protect the riverbank. Now, historically, the Jordan River, there's not a lot of movement. It's a very low-flowing river. And with the improvements at the mouth of the river, it's probably even less. The Jordan River Commission on their website has historical documentation. I think the first meander corridor was mapped, I want to say 1857. There's a few places where it's moved. There's Oxbow, I believe, up in Lehigh, that I don't know if that was by nature or man got rid of it. But for the most part, the meander corridor hasn't moved a whole lot, obviously due to the nature of the river. But this would just then protect the riverbank once development happens on those parcels, and that could then be removed from that hazard erosion area.
Unrelated to this, who from the staff, I know we've had staff turnovers regularly attending the Jordan River Commission.
I want to say it's Sarah is attending that right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the point to Jeremy apparently is she'd be a good contact. Sorry, anyway, yeah, I mean, she can help facilitate a lot of that, so.
Yeah.
Jeremy's still nodding, like, yeah.
Sure, of course.
It is actually.
We did advertise as a public hearing with the planning commission. We did notify the property owners along the riverbank. We actually took it to the planning commission without, because it was kind of a general Title 19. We didn't notice anybody. Planning commission said, hey, we want you to notice at least those along the river. So we did. So we brought it back to the planning commission for a public hearing.
Good.
Great.
Minor, I guess probably not adjustment, but I was just noticing between this code 192506 and the second section there, and relating it back to our waterfront buffer in 192502.5.
Yeah.
So in dot 5, the way it's termed, it's more discouraging against hard armoring on the shoreline, and where this is a different feel for it as far as it's saying it may include those type of things. And so I know, like with Jordan River Commission, they're against hard armoring along the shore. So I don't know if it's worth adjusting, but just kind of inconsistency in the tone between our two codes there.
Okay.
See, and I think that it's interesting that they're against armoring, because armoring done right can create a really
No,
nice
I agree.
waterfront. So I think that they're talking about just where they, I'm not gonna say willy-nilly throw it up, because they still do the engineering behind it, but when they're not doing it with a purpose. And I think that, because they've got other areas up north where they have done some armoring up
Kind of
there.
like the other rivers where they just slap concrete down.
Right,
without
right.
any-
And in this case, especially where you talked about, if you go through the report, they're talking about a lot of slough off in different areas. That would be a perfect place for armoring, where you're never going to get a less than 30% slope on that because you've got a 20-foot wall, right? So those kinds of areas should be armored and should be appropriately used.
Yeah, and when,
It's the ongoing struggle between engineers and planners. Engineers just, from a strictly engineering standpoint.
It'd be all armored.
A lot of big rock would be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously from a planning or a bioengineering standpoint, that's not the best for the wildlife.
We've got to make it look good.
But where you've already got a 20-foot wall because it's sloughed off, it makes sense to armor it properly.
That is going to have to go through state lands, it's going to have to go through all those agencies, and they're going to provide direction as to whether they want.
That's appropriate.
Hard armoring, whether they want something that's more soft, like timber logs or planting, willow plantings or whatever, so.
And it mentions that. It's just, I saw the two different tones and how our code is
This
written.
an excerpt from the actual study from CH2 until 2001, which was written by engineers. And I think what you have in the current code was more of a planning.
Right, that makes sense.
Kind of make an aesthetic. And so, yeah, there's a need to satisfy both with a happy medium there.
Well, and the planning document from Jordan River Commission mostly focuses, to be truthful, on Salt Lake County, because most of the Jordan River goes through Salt Lake County. And I think we have a little bit different topography down here.
It probably has to do with also depending on where you are on the river, the sheer velocities, the things you're trying to mitigate. Some areas may require hard armoring because they're in such high erosion zones, and other areas are more mild and lesser measures may be sufficient.
in the Jordan River Commission, from my memory when I've been, it's been a little bit, but it's typically they're opposed to stuff that limits the ability to use the river versus improving, so. Which is a little bit different. If you're slapping down concrete and people can't get in, or it prevents canoes or
Well, I
boats
think
or
much
whatever.
like the east side of Utah Lake, the entities over there have long seen Utah Lake as an eyesore, and seems like most of Salt Lake County has kind of seen it that way too, and all they want to see is green on it, not realizing that you can do open space and have economic development at the same time.
Yep, agreed.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks.
I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the code amendment to River Meander Corridor, ordinance 19-17 dated today.
I have a first from Councilman Podeska,
I'll second.
second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilwoman Barch.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, if I can, before we jump into minutes, I've neglected on reports to mention the Utah Lake Festival is happening Saturday, June 1st. And that's going to be a huge, big party down there. They've got all kinds of free things to do, paddle boat rides and sailboat rides, and they've got a regatta that's going to actually, an actual boat race that'll go on. So they've got lots of things going on down there. So check that out.
It'd be fun.
Come join us. Yeah.
Okay. The minutes from May 7th, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve the minutes of May 7th with any changes that were submitted. I didn't see any. Okay.
Okay, I have first from Councilwoman Barch,
Second.
second from Councilman Wilden. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye, sorry.
Do we have an
I was
aye?
waiting for my name.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, that is the end of our policy session. We'll move into the city council work session.
Mayor and council, this is just a work.
I know.
Wildflower Springs. Yeah, I'd like to talk about combining these developments into one master community plan and doing away with the existing Springs development agreement. We've got a presentation here that the PI will go.
Okay?
We appreciate your time.
Sorry.
Okay, fair enough. But, I'm sure glad that we still have time to work through this project. I will try and keep my presentation brief. I appreciate your input tonight. The objective is really to update you all in where we are in our current application process, answer any questions that you might have, and hopefully solicit feedback as we go so that we can continue to work with your staff in bringing a proposal for you ultimately to vote on that is one that you're going to be comfortable with. Stepping back, because we have been at this for a number of years, I thought it appropriate that I walk through really quickly with you where we are today. So we have an existing wildflower community plan that was approved back in 2015. This is the map as it sits today. It currently consists of 1,468 total ERUs, 30% open space, which translates to 133 acres. We have also purchased the property to the east, which is the Springs Master Plan. Its existing development agreement has 1,770 total ERUs associated with it. And we've now been bedazzled. It has a requirement in the development agreement for 19% open space. It's vested with 626 single-family homes, 857 apartments or R14 dense ERUs, 287 townhomes, for a total of 91, with an additional 91 acres of open space. And that's what that plan looks like. So if you take the two together and look at where our current land uses sit, this map helps depict exactly where we're starting from. If you combine those two, we have a total of 1,652 single-family units, 857 apartments or R14 dense units, 729 townhomes for a total of 3,238 ERUs, and a total of 226 acres of open space. That's kind of summarized here. Any questions about where we're starting from? So a couple of years ago, we put our heads together as a development team as we were expanding our project, and we basically asked ourselves, there's got to be a way that we can do this better. And through that process and your staff's input and frankly a lot of your input, we've identified some overall objectives. These are in no particular order, but the sensitivity to our neighbors on the north end, Camp Williams, how do we address some of the concerns that they have raised? Job creation, what can we do as a master plan community developer in your community to address job creation? How do we look at providing a community that has the most recent home designs and guidelines and the most beautiful product that we can provide? How do we take our design as we design these with the roads and the physical layout and address the topography? What do we do with, is there a way that we can create additional open space? And the last one on the list here, the realities of our good friends UDOT that run right through the middle of our project. This plan here is what's been submitted to staff currently. And as we've been talking with them, they've brought up, hey, that's great. This meets the overall intent of the community plan application process, but we really need the details and the guts behind it. And so that's what this plan here represents. Let me walk you through that, and then we'll take you through each of the objectives. Feel free to interrupt me at any point. So if you remember, we had a total of 3,238 total ERUs between the two plans combined. Our proposal today is for 3,238 ERUs. We're not asking for additional density. We have, through that process, gone back and looked at the land uses, and we are proposing to increase by 595 units, single-family residences. We have removed all of the apartments and anything that would be in the R14 zoning designation. We have increased the total number of townhomes by 262 units. That's how we get to the same number of 3,238. The other thing that we have done is increase the open space by 102 acres. That is part of falling within the community plan approval process. We've applied the existing community plan, which requires 30% open space, and we've put that into the Springs area. The other thing that we have done is gone back and evaluated what is currently the regional commercial designation. And as you know, we've talked to you about the realities of UDOT, and we talk some more about that, but we're proposing a commercial/business park zoning area that will help create jobs and give a place for neighborhood retail, but also some type A office, some type B office, some light industrial use. So let me talk specifically to some of the objectives that we came up with and how we feel we've met them. Under the existing Springs Development Agreement, that's a base zone that's under your city code. There is no real designation in your city code that talks about what the exterior of those homes will look like, and there's no real theming behind it. There's no real talk about a community story or what is the look and feel of those homes as you drive down the street.
Varying, product.
Exactly, very minimal.
Because we want you as designers to be able to bring in your best product.
So big reason why we want to get the Springs into the Wildflower is so we can add that specificity and talk to you about, okay, that's what this is. Adding the language to the vesting that will require us going forward not to build the same house over and over again in a row, but move those home types around and have the facades be different, and the upgraded facade area. We're really interested in raising the bar by bringing the Springs area under the Wildflower plan. We accomplished that. We think that's a big deal. We're really wanting to raise the quality of the home that's being delivered in that area. By bringing the two projects together, obviously we're now dealing with a total of 3,200 units. And by doing that, we have a critical mass that's substantial. And it gives us the ability to do some really cool things when it comes to programming. So for the Wildflower community, our intent is to have things like food truck roundups and concerts and picnics. You're right, Councilmember McComber. That's the size of some cities.
Well, I was actually saying when I first got elected, I think that was the size of Saratoga Springs.
So you can understand what that means. And by bringing this northwest quadrant of your city under one kind of ownership and by one plan and one story and one vision, we're able to provide for our residents and your residents a better program of a better quality of life. It also enables us to combine that open space programming and pull those amenity packages together. So now we can really have the trails tied together. We can have the tot lights have similar theming. We can have the pickleball courts and the dog parks and all of the different pieces that we're putting together. Our intent is that we have a truly active family community. We're really excited about that. So this plan shows how right now our base amenity package looks like with our proposal that's in front of your staff today. It has everything from hiking and running and biking trails to a 30, well, we got to talk acreages, but it has a very large off-leash dog park area. It has a demonstration garden, which I might add came from community input that we got from one of your existing Saratoga residents. We appreciated that. She came after a meeting and said, hey, have you ever thought about doing a demonstration garden? And I thought, no, we missed it, so we put it in. We're overall really excited about how this plan comes together. Something that we'll talk about a little bit later is how that incorporates the desire of Camp Williams to have a military cemetery, as well as provide, as we talk later about access, where they'll be. So our neighbors to the north, who we truly respect and admire, and having been able to spend a little bit more time with those who serve in our military around Camp Williams, it's been a fascinating, life-changing experience for me. It really has. Our desire is to be a good neighbor, no matter where we develop, but we're super sensitive to the fact that we have a unique military installation to the north of us, and what we're putting together today, we feel like we need to be sensitive to that. So a couple of the key parts of this, when I sat down with the representatives of Camp Williams, they identified, this is a little bit harder to see, but in the top drawing, there's a dark line that runs east to west, right to left, kind of halfway through the top half and bottom half. Everything on the north side of that, or the top side of that, is the area that Camp Williams identified as their sensitive area. They see this whole valley as sensitive, but specifically they said, guys, anything we can do north of that line would be greatly appreciated. So when we looked at what we were doing, originally, right now today approved is 325 homes that are in that area. We've been able to reduce that down to 287. And we've been able to increase the buffering so that there is a buffer between what we're building and Camp Williams all the way around. There won't be any backyards that touch Camp Williams.
You gonna put any trails in there?
Yes. And that was a point of discussion that we had with the camp of, do we leave it so there's no trails because you don't want people there? And their answer was no, they were fine with trails, they just didn't want a backyard abutting their fence.
Abutting property.
Yeah. Now clearly, they would love to have no homes built there. We understand that. We're doing the best we can. The other thing that Camp Williams talked about was that they have a need to access their camp directly from this area, and they would prefer to do that in a way that they don't go through residential neighborhoods.
Or caravans of military trucks.
Military trucks that are frankly full of ammunition. It's a live ammunition training that they do, and they have to be able to get that live ammunition onto camp, and how do they do that? Right now, I understand that they're doing that through neighborhoods. Not the best thing to be doing. So in working with them,
Nate, if I can stop you on that one, right now, one of the main access points they use is not through neighborhoods. Right now, they come up West Military Road, and right there where Mountain View Corridor, it crosses the power corridor line, that's the gate they're using, and that actually wouldn't be between neighborhoods. It would, just like, at least everything I've seen so far in your plans, it would be right in between neighborhoods. So I don't know why we wouldn't use the existing gate instead of taking them up through.
I'm not sure, so this is the plan.
Yeah, so right now they come, the road where the road comes off.
You have a big green area by the power corridor. It comes
Okay.
right around
You can
it.
see the
So
road actually. on
I
your
know
map.
they have an access there, I don't know they're actively using it. We're proposing that stays there.
Well, they use the one out in Eagle Mountain, but they also want, that was the one that they were talking about that they wanted here.
Perfect. So that one, we are proposing that be their primary access. It'll be the quickest and easiest way for them to do it.
Perfect.
We don't own all of that ground.
Right, a lot of it's Rocky Mountain Power Corridor,
Rocky Mountain Power Corridor is there, and
which they
you
don't
can
have
see
problem
on this map, if I was able to zoom in on it a little bit, you can see in the Rocky Mountain Power Corridor, there's a road that kind of wraps up in between the power lines there. That's the primary location, and in working with the representatives of camp, indicated to us that that's where they'd like it.
Good.
Just on your other map, it only talks about
Yeah.
the secondary.
So the other one is the secondary access that's further to the west, and that would come up around where we're proposing that they have their military cemetery. They've indicated that they'd like somewhere between 30 and 35 acres for that cemetery. And as part of that, we think that they could come off of the main boulevard with limited impact to residential areas and have another way if for some reason the other one wasn't working or they needed to get.
Secondary access.
Yeah. So both. But we've been able to provide a minimum of 150 feet with a buffer, which has a trail in it. And we've been able to reduce the total number of units, down that are actually in that sensitive land area. So one of the other realities we've had so much fun dealing with is our good friends at UDOT. And again, totally respect the fact that they need to move people around. That's their job, that's what they do.
Your 3,000 ERUs.
My 3,000 ERUs need to go there. And that means that we have the Mountain View Corridor, which we're all familiar with. It also means that we have the expansion of State Road 73, which I think has been now